Mr Speaker.
Honourable Shane Jones.
New Zealanders, I'll have you know, the Matua has been engaged in high-level discussions to grow the economy in inverse proportions to the last contribution. Because I don't need to hear the words. I already know there would have been some ranked opposing the stairway to economic heaven, otherwise known as mining, otherwise known as using the resources, as she would say, of Tangaroa, the god of the sea. Well, let the god of rhetoric share a few, make a few observations. This is a year of delivery. The small part of responsibility, Mr Speaker, that I've had has been focused on consistent delivery. Now, as the co-leader of the Māori Party said earlier today, there is a great deal of woe, pain, insecurity related to these weather events. And sadly, as Parliament stood today and observed a period of silence for our fellow New Zealanders, visitors who have perished, but folks, this government has poured hundreds of millions of dollars into flood mitigation, flood adaptation, because, let me remind the other co-leader of the Māori Party, who unwisely observed that somehow her and the Matua could be in the same waka and form a government together. No. The Matua's waka sails to a rising sun with a great deal of skilled navigation. The waka she represents is hold. It's what we say in Ngāpuhi, it's pakaroo. South Islanders, pakaroo means it's dented, bent out of shape. But that's not just the waka. That's the political philosophy of that co-leader of the Māori Party. But as I said at Ratna Marae, 180 years ago there was a climatic event, bad weather on the shores of Lake Taupō. What I said to the young ariki from Tūwharetoa, I said, e tama, the name of your tupuna is Horonuku. Horo being to collapse, nuku, the land, papatua nuku. 180 years ago, inclement weather caused a cliff, caused the side of a hill to collapse, and the ariki was buried. 180 years ago. So please don't tell me that all of a sudden these weather events, as unfortunate and dangerous as they are, that New Zealand is not capable of adapting, learning, and look no further than the man in front of you who has delivered the money on behalf of the government to boost stop banks, rebuild roads, improve the capacity of infrastructure, because that's the delivery. Not all of these extraordinarily fairy tale-like accounts that somehow, if we tax cows, if we close down industry, if we destroy jobs in the South Island, that all of a sudden we're going to have a better climate overnight. We will have a worse economic climate, and not only will that worse economic climate afflict families and communities in regional New Zealand, it'll drive them out of existence. And this is why the fast-track legislation represents one of the best opportunities for the Taranaki region to develop the resources, to create the jobs. And I look forward to that far-sighted institution, otherwise known as the fast-track legislation, to provide a brilliant opportunity. Now, I know there'll be some seagulls, some karoro flying around of particularly strange colours trying to undermine the process of the fast track, but fair-minded Kiwis realise that is delivering. It can deliver for Taranaki in inverse proportions to the rhetoric we hear from certain members, but fortunately they'll be gone at the end of the year. I'm not talking about the colleague from the other side of the House over here. He'll still be there, but I fear there's a young man who has an even better tattoo on his face than the other co-leader of the Māori Party from Whanganui. And he is standing up to provide, apparently, to the Labour Party. I mean, he's not my cup of tea. He can certainly do with a haircut, but I'll overlook those imperfections in the context of a democratic contest. However, let me come back to the vexed issue of fisheries. I am not Burley. We are not going to surrender the solvency, the viability of the New Zealand fishing industry for some weekend spear fishermen who may have seen some random fish out of the end of the cod end of a particular boat's trawling activity. And for as long as I stand here with the privilege of representing our government and inshore fishing, there will be no termination of trawling. There will be no termination of the inshore fishing industry to suit the misinformation, adult thinking of Greenpeace and their fellow travellers, otherwise known as the ringleaders of the recreational sector. Now, no New Zealander has profited in terms of reputation development other than Matt Watson in fisheries. Now, that man has made an art form of stigmatising, tainting and spreading great bursts of misinformation against the commercial fishing industry, whilst himself maintaining a very tidy business. Well, sorry, Mr. Watson, in the pursuit of facts, you've met your match with the matua. Now, of course, the other thing that must not be overlooked amongst this group of people who want to terminate inshore fisheries is they are basically saying they want to unravel the full and final fisheries settlement, otherwise known as the Sea Lord settlement, entered into the time of Right Honourable Jim Bolger, Doug Graham and Doug Kidd. On this side of the House, we are not going to feed ridiculous expectations that treaty settlements can be renegotiated as per suggestions on the other side of the House at every generation. And neither are we going to give in to weekend Yamaha, Kawasaki, Hikoi experts who should have been on a boat rather than on the harbour bridge, given to their desires and then unravel the full and final fisheries settlement just so they can enjoy better access on the weekend to inshore fisheries. This is a shared resource. It requires balance and it requires a quality of leadership that is both candid, informed, and doesn't perpetuate this grievance mentality, this colonial guilt that riddles the Māori analysis largely on that side of the House. Now, why is that being fed? They are trying to feed, Mr. Speaker, with that cult of decolonisation, a sense of permanent grievance. New Zealand cannot go ahead with that level of burden, that handicap, which is why, as a consequence of various speeches I'll be giving, at least one or two a year all over the country, I suspect I'll be giving about 52 speeches as we secure greater levels of electoral support. Look, I won't talk about the polls, that's for my leader to say, but the trend is your friend. And the trend is heading in the right direction because not only are we going to tolerate an end to unfettered immigration, to my friends from the right side of the House, there's no way that we are going to allow the foundation culture of New Zealand to be surrendered by that tried but unfair and unhappy set of consequences of being too liberal with immigration. But at the same time, a good government is a steward not only of unity, but of national consciousness and national cohesiveness. That is why there's only one party on matters Māori who focuses on cohesiveness, delivery, and by the way, please tell me the name of the politician, the leader in the party who has delivered consistently for Parihaka, Waitangi, the sites of Māori battle with the Crown, Ratana, and investing in a marae, Nerapotiki, necessary to ensure that the resilience and the community security is boosted. The name of that party is New Zealand First.